Hello and welcome to a new season of Legislative Update. I'm Ralph Boehm, now State Rep for Hudson and Litchfield, and some new things this year. Show is being done in Hudson as Litchfield had scheduling problems. And something else new, a new co-host. Caitlin, introduce yourself.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm Caitlin Kutab, a representative from Windham, and I sit on the Judiciary Committee.
And also, I'm on a new committee this year. I'm on Public Works and Highways. Reason I chose that this year because no way they're going to put me back where I was. But I'm on the National Regional Planning Commission, so that committee works great with when we do the 10-year highway plan and capital budget. But first, before we go into bills that has happened this last month, we'll go through on how you can figure out what we're doing up in Concord. Now you can go to this website called nh.gov, okay, and then in that, let's go back. And that's what it looks like if you want to bring that up. And then you go to government and state legislature, and that's what it is, and that's it. We can look up bills later, but first we want to go to what things are happening, and that's what a calendar looks like. But you can go to look up House calendars, and we won't bring up this short one because it's just an ant, but we'll bring up the calendar like for this week. See, that's what it looks like. And you can go down, scroll down, and you can see what's going on, committee meetings. There's no session this week, and that's why no bills will show up. We'll go look at an earlier one. But there's the committee meetings, like criminal justice was last Friday, and showing all the bills that were being done that week. And this is about the same notice that pretty much we get, a week before. So, we don't, in some cases, we don't have any more input than you do on the calendar. And like yesterday, I had a meeting on Public Works and Highways. It was with the legislative budget assistant and state treasurer. We were going over the capital, what the governor put in for capital improvements.
Do you want to show them how they could sign in on a bill?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah. So
if they find something interesting on the calendar that they either want to support or oppose.
Right, and this tells you what times and where, so you can go up or whatnot, or you can, how do we get out of this now?
Just go to the first tab. It opened in a new window.
Oh, that's right. There we go.
So it's under committees.
Yeah. Okay, where are we at?
If you just go back to the state legislature, then right under House.
Oh, right, there we go. Different than
House Home, yeah, hit House Home.
Under committees?
Yeah, hit House Home first. And then under committees, there's an online testimony right at the top under committees.
Committees and then?
The fourth tab down.
Right, online testimony and submission. So what you can do is put your name, a town, and select the date of the hearing. And you can upload any testimony that you've typed up or type in stuff there. And that'll come, then you can review it to make sure and then submit it. So that's a way of putting in testimony if you can't get there. It's best to, and this goes to everybody on that committee.
One thing to note, when you click, if you're supporting or opposing the bill, make sure you click the right button, because once you hit submit, you unfortunately cannot edit it. So we sometimes will get an email from somebody who says, hey, I accidentally hit oppose and I meant to hit support.
Right, so it says, like select a committee and then you
You got to select the bill date first.
What?
You have to select a date on the calendar first.
Oh, okay.
So pick it.
So let's do the, and then select a committee, and I can go down, we'll say election law. Then choose a bill number that's in election law, and those are all the different bills. And what time, okay?
Pick one of them so you can just
And then,
pick one of them. Otherwise, they're all crossed out.
right, yeah, and then you can select you're opposing it or for it or whatever, okay? So, oh, then you go support the bill, oppose the bill, neutral, okay? So that's pretty neat on how you can do that. It's better though to come if you can, but because depending on how many people, depending on the bill, for example, if it's probably parental rights, there's going to be a lot of negatives from union people. That's what has happened when I was on education.
For sure. And you can also email your rep too if you.
Right, and that's.
I always answer anybody that emails, especially from my district. I'll make sure to respond back to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to look to contact the representative, okay, and I found a mistake because, for example, you can do it a number of ways. You can go through the whole roster, find out. You can select a town, and this is what I found a problem with this, because if I go to Hudson, see, he said, there's your reps in Hudson. Okay? For district, and it doesn't list me.
What's going on, Ralph? Did you resign on us and not tell us what's happening
here? If I go to
here?
Litchfield,
It shows up.
it shows up as District 14, not District 38.
Huh.
So they goofed up. But the reps are there anyway, so. Or I can, that's search by town, but if I know the rep's name, I can, whoops. Anyway, you know the rep's name, you can go there. Oh yeah, like Keith Ammon comes up because I clicked on it, and it has a picture of him, and mine has a picture too, but it's an old one. I haven't updated it since 2005, I think, but and my information is incorrect. But anyway, but it'll show what committee they're on and how to get a hold of them. But that's the way you can do that. Okay. So that's how you can find out who we are and what's going on up in the State House. Now, in the last couple of weeks, we've had some bills come up, and we'll just go back to being live. And we looked up some bills, and find your reps email, we did all that. And the last 2 months, last month, we had some bills. One was HB 238, which was collective bargaining, and that's always a hot one. That's for not forcing people to join a union if they don't want to. That comes up every couple years. And what happened to it this year is, because one of the things here after we can, it keeps double clicking on me, is
Also known as right to work.
right, you can find out what the bill is and you can just do the bill number, which we know this one, it's HB 238, or you can do a search for right to work. And there's the bill. And you can see the House status. It was indefinitely postponed, which is another vote you can take. There's, ought to pass. Inexpedient to legislate ITL, of tabling it, indefinitely postponed, which means theoretically, indefinitely postponed means it's dead even for next year. Nobody can bring it up again. Now,
For this term.
for this term, the problem with that, and even if supposedly if a bill comes from the Senate, it's supposed to be but depending on leadership, and I remember last year there was a bill that was indefinitely postponed on the House side, yet a same bill came from the Senate and they let it be heard. So it's not always indefinitely postponed. But anyway, but then what we can do is search, press on the bill HB 238 FN, and there you can see roll calls. And there was a roll call. There are 3 ways of voting, too. You can voice vote, and most people that know the no's always yell louder than the ayes, except people are learning, so the ayes are getting really loud. I'm going, or division vote, that's where you use your push buttons on your chair, but it's not recorded how you voted, it just counts the number of votes. And then there's roll call, and the roll call is everybody's name is recorded. So this was called for a roll call, and somebody can just yell roll call and needs, 15 people to second that roll call. And here's what's interesting on this. What you can do is you can find out who, but you can also find out, for example, the vote breakdown. Democrats, 175, no nays, and 2 didn't vote. So Republicans, there were 25 yays on the indefinitely postponed, 180 nays, so basically indefinitely postponed passed 200 to 180. Now, if you want to find out who, and the Republicans, for example, voted yes, there's all their names. Yeah. So that's on some bill, that's nice to know. Especially if you maybe sent them an email saying you want to vote this and this and this and this, and it's what the person ran on, that they were going to vote for this, you can double check that, okay? So that was one of the bills. Also, and you spoke about this one, Caitlin, HB 369.
Yeah, so that's a bill that I actually co-sponsored relative to sexual assaults in minors. So right now what happens is those trials happen in circuit court and they're before a judge. If the defendant doesn't like the outcome, if they're found guilty, they can then appeal for a trial, another trial by jury over in the Superior Court. And so what's happening is that the victims are now having to go through 2 trials. And so particularly with vulnerable minors, we don't really want them to have to do that. And it is an added expense to the state because especially the ones that are getting public defenders, we're paying for the attorneys kind of 2 times over. Now, keep in mind, you can always appeal these to a higher court, such as the Supreme Court. However, what this bill did was it made you decide from the time of the arraignment, shortly after the time of the arraignment, did you want to have the trial by jury in Superior Court, or did you just want to go with the trial by judge over in the Circuit Court? And then whichever you picked, that's what you picked, and you couldn't then appeal it over to the Superior Court to have a trial by jury afterwards. That way the victim was really only having to go through that traumatic experience once. And this was for victims of sexual assault that were under 18 years old.
Right, yeah.
So that one did pass, which is excellent. And then it sometimes when bills are heard afterwards, they go to a second committee. Typically that second committee is finance. With this particular bill, it had first come in through the Judiciary Committee, and then it was sent back through the Criminal Justice Committee. So that will have another hearing over in the Criminal Justice Committee before it heads over to the Senate.
Right, and then there was, another bill, 682, which sort of abolished the wind energy office that was set up. Now, we know wind energy is not in my backyard or not in the ocean because the electrical field might injure fish and attract sharks and hurt whales and that kind of stuff. So it's not very good. So they just really put it underneath another group that looks at like so-called green energy. So that also passed. Also, HB 368, this was the one, and this was to do with banning smoking in vehicles if there's a minor, and that was vaping also. Now, wait a minute, how far did we go on this? When you grew up, did your parents smoke in your car?
They didn't. My parents weren't smokers, but I mean, I feel like on a bill like this, it's about education.
Right.
If a parent's taught that that's dangerous to their child, they don't need a law to prevent them from doing
Right.
that. And I don't think a law is certainly going to stop somebody one way or the other regarding that. It's just, it's really educating at that. And if we ban smoking in the vehicle, what about in the house?
Right.
I mean, the parents really just need to be educated, and we need to just, give them that education so they know that it's not healthy. But banning it is just kind of a step too
Yeah.
far. If we see somebody, that maybe didn't have their heat on and they're, just breathing, and you see what looks like smoke, are we going to pull them over? I mean, it's
Right.
just...
Right, yeah, it's how, yeah, luckily that failed. I mean, live free or die, and heaven's sakes, how far do we go, like you said, on, and it was a second offense. In other words, you had to be pulled over for something else. So anyway, it's similar to other bills, okay. Another one, two bills together, HB 255 and HB 318, which was both taking the business taxes, putting more of the business taxes into the education trust fund. But then who loses? That's the thing. I mean, you take money from here and put it here, but then who you taking it from? The state only has so much money, and that's what the budget is, dividing that money. For example, it's not like the town. For example, you can vote for all the stuff for your town. All they do is raise taxes. The state can't do that. They can, but pretty much what taxes do they raise? There's not a property tax or anything like that for them to get more money, other than come up with an income tax, which we know that's not wanted, or a sales tax. Yeah, let's close down Salem, New Hampshire. I mean, and Nashua, do away with, put in a sales tax. So there's a limit on the money, and so the state cannot spend more than they got, just like at home.
One thing New Hampshire does well, we have a balanced budget. We're not Washington, so we don't go out and print more money that we don't have.
Right, we can't print the money, but the balanced budget, we have to balance our budget, and sometimes there's a rainy day fund that's usually from money that was maybe left over from the previous biennium that the governor can use in emergencies. But other than that, that's it. I mean, this is the budget. Other than the governor can call a special session if there's an emergency to maybe spend more money. But it's tied. It's a balanced budget, just like at home. You can't spend more than you take it in. Yeah. So also, this was a good one too. HB 243. This was penalty for false reports on abuse and neglect.
Yeah, there's really been quite a few reports that have ruined lives. Now, of course, we want people to report when actual abuse is happening, and that's not at all what this is talking about. This is talking about when somebody knows, right, hey, my ex-spouse or my ex-sister-in-law isn't really abusing the children, but I want to get them because they've really made me mad, and I'm going to submit a false report. That's taking away from the kids that actually need help and
Right.
support from DCYF, but it's also really injuring to families. And so this was just allowing them to record the names of the person that was calling in and letting them know that, hey, by the way, if you're making a malicious report that you know is not true, it is a crime. And hopefully that will deter some of the false
Right.
crimes that are happening, because of course we want kids to be protected, but at the same time we don't want people to be falsely reporting things that they know didn't happen.
Right, yeah, and I've been seeing cases of this over the years where, police chiefs and stuff have really been, going through a divorce, and the wife said it was cause of abuse, and it wasn't. It came out later. It was never any abuse, but that maybe could cost the person his job and that kind of thing. So there needs to be penalties on that. One thing I would like also to add on to this, maybe for future, is if somebody says you're doing something, say to a child or something, and you're not, shouldn't you know who that person was?
Well, I think the interesting thing that a lot of people don't know too is that in New Hampshire, everybody is a mandated reporter. So in many other states, typically only a physician or a teacher or professions that work with children are mandated reporters. But in the state of New Hampshire, everybody is a mandated reporter.
Right. Okay, and then HB 56, which was requiring a background check and mandatory waiting period during certain firearm transfers. Another gun control thing. So in other words, if I give you a gun, you have to get a background check. No. So anyway, that failed as it should. I mean, there's another gun one too, is not allowing guns at polling places. I don't think we've ever had a problem with somebody with a gun at a polling place. There are police there usually, and nothing come up, and a lot of people don't know that they can, even though it's in the school, but it's a polling place. But, people hey, it's a school, so I can't bring my gun anyway. But, so.
One thing to note in New Hampshire is that because we don't require a pistol license anymore, we're a constitutional carry state.
Right.
It is very highly recommended if you do carry one to the polling location because it's a school, that you make sure that you have that pistol license, because otherwise you might not be in compliance with federal law.
Right, yeah. Also, HB 75, another marijuana bill.
76.
HB 76, I'm sorry. Yes, HB 76, can't read my own typing. But HB 76. And another, it basically says anybody over 21 can legally. The problem with that passed, but the governor will veto it anyway.
If it makes it through the Senate.
Yeah, if it makes it through the Senate, what I hear it's not going to. One thing, got to be careful of that, though, with cannabis and marijuana. It's still against the federal law, which means somebody that says that doesn't like you, no, even if you take medical marijuana or cannabis and you own a gun, they can report you to the feds and they can take your gun away from you. Because you didn't fill out the form right when you went to get your background check, which you have to put down that. So you be careful on that. Also, is that the governor will veto it anyway. And interesting, Northwoods Law, if you ever see that show on TV, it's about fish and game in New Hampshire and Maine. It's on Discovery Channel or one of them. I mean, and this was a few years ago. They had a search and rescue in White Mountain National Forest. If you know White Mountain National Forest, it's federal property.
Oh, boy.
So be careful. Anyway, but they had to do a search and rescue on a young lady that was missing. So they found her. She was just sleeping. What happened was one of her friends had made a batch of cookies with cannabis in it, and it wasn't mixed very good. So she got a cookie that was heavy.
Highly dosed with it.
Heavy. So she overdosed. But no, you can't overdose. Yeah, it puts you to sleep. So she went to sleep. But so since it was her fault for the search and rescue, so she had to pay for the search and rescue, plus it also being on federal property, she got a big fine for having marijuana on federal
boy.
property.
Well, the other
So-
thing that's really been problematic with a lot of the cannabis bills that have come before us is they haven't had any limit of intoxication. So right now, because it's not legal in New Hampshire, if you're involved in a serious motor vehicle incident where somebody is either severely injured or,
Right.
God forbid, they die, any limit that was in your system, which they can, do a blood test, you'd be considered OUI.
Right.
And it would be likely vehicular homicide, where we don't have a limit in a lot of these bills to define what the level of intoxication is. There's always an argument that, oh, well, you can just do a field sobriety test. However, if there is a severe motor vehicle accident where the person lives to tell the tale, however, they are injured and they're not
Right.
able to complete a field sobriety test, we have no limit that defines whether they were intoxicated or not. And to me, if you go out and you smoke too much and you kill a minivan full of a family, you should be held liable for that crime. And I just, it's concerning to me that's missing from many of these bills.
And that's been my problem over the years, is why I always voted no on that, because, I mean, these organizations spending all this money trying to legalize it, spend money on testing, because there isn't any test. I mean, if you smoked, say, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, it still will show up. And so they do a sobriety, subjective. To me, it's subjective. In other words, the cop said, oh, I smelt marijuana. Whether or not he did or not, there's no proof. So that's one of the reasons I've been always against it. There's no way of telling, like Caitlin said, of how bad are you. You do a field sobriety test, but hey, at my age, I'd probably flunk a field sobriety test normally. Walk that straight line. Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, so it's subjective, and it's not a good thing. And now they're finding more and more problems with cannabis that oh no, it was okay. No, it was always bad. I mean, it was it comes out to be not good. So anyway, that passed. But anyway, it looked like the Senate probably won't. But it didn't pass with enough to override a veto. And Governor Kelly Ayotte said she will veto cannabis bill, just like Sununu said he would also. I mean, you listen to the police reports and whatnot that testify is the number of intoxications, whether or not there's no way of testing. Like I said, for you can do a breathalyzer test for alcohol. That's simple. You can do that. But for cannabis,
there are a few blood tests which they have worked on the technology of a bit so that you could see the active amount versus kind of the residual amount. But there's arguments about how accurate that those blood tests really are, and so they're not. There's certain states that do have limits like that, such as Colorado does. But in our bills, for whatever reason, nobody puts in any limit.
No, right? Because then it'd be a finance bill because you have to pay for those.
That's very true.
So anything, you said you might have some other bills?
I think we covered a lot of great stuff.
Okay, good. So we still have another, let's see, anything else we want to go over? But I like that one on false reports. And I think that needs to go a little bit higher. But like I said, you can look up all the bills that are coming up and find out. And we'll have some more in our next session, which is a week from now. And so I want to thank Hudson Cable for allowing us to do this. And we thank you.
Thank you for having me here today.